Hi guys, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Okay, um, and I'm going to continue the story of my dad and Regent Sound Studios, and this will be part 3. Okay, now before I get back to the story, we're going to go back in time just a little bit to the previous year, 1984. And while I was pursuing cinematography, I was also, I was doing so many voices, as you know, you've heard me do it. And one of the voices that I can do is an announcer's voice. I could say, "This is CBS," right? I could always say, "This is a test. For the next 60 seconds, this station will conduct a test of the emergency system. This is only a test. This has been a test of the emergency broadcast system. The broadcasters of this area, of your area, in cooperation with the FCC and other federal authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency. Had this been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed where to tune in your area for news and official information. This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system." This portion of the Red Skelton Show is brought to you by Miralax. You know, have you, and I could do the Channel 5 WNEW at 10 p.m. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Okay, so I knew I had a good voiceover voice. I had a great announcer's voice. So early in 1984, I looked at the New York City papers looking for an announcer's auditioning for an announcer. So I saw they were holding auditions. And now, this was 84, so I was 22 years old. I was still a kid. At 22, even though I was an adult, I was still very green. I was so inexperienced with the big picture. Okay, the big picture. And this is one of my many, many regrets. Okay, so they were holding auditions, and I go, and I was seated at a big, long table, um, you know, and sat down with other people, and they gave us each a copy of the script. And I said, and I was so young, I was so cocky and arrogant because I never saw the big picture. And this was my big, big, big mistake. I said to the guy, "Is there a part for an announcer or narrator?" And he says, "No. I want you to read this person's lines." And I said, "Well, if there's no announcer or voiceover, then I'm not interested." I picked myself up and walked out of there. And many years later, I regret doing that. I was young, I was stupid, I was ignorant, I was 22 years old. Hell, I wasn't out in the world. I didn't really never saw the big picture. Because Casey Kasem, before he hosted America's Top 40, he did voiceovers. Yeah. He did Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. He did, what's his name, Sylvester, on Josie and the Pussycats. He voiced Robin for the Batman Robin cartoons. You know, And then he moved from that to being an announcer. But I never really knew that until, of course, years later. And I realized, oh man, was I stupid. Here was an opportunity to start a career of being a voice talent. And who knows where that could have led. Who knows? And I really, really noticed it. What I truly lost, what opportunity I screwed myself up over when I saw a new Batman card. Was it Batman? I think it was Batman Beyond. And there was a guard who I guess was, I don't know, or sentry on duty. And he called out in the very same way I called out when I played Officer Krupke in Camp Emerson's presentation of West Side Story. And it was, I hated being in the spotlight. I hated being on stage. I was stage fright. I had stage fright. And I wanted to get out of it. They said, you can't get out of it. Everybody has to participate. So I said, okay, which character had the fewest lines? And that's when they told me Officer Krupke. He had only 7 lines. And the thing that got me was I had to learn not only my line, but the line before, because that was my cue to speak. Or if it was an action, I had to, that would be my cue. Say, okay, I say this at that time. So I knew I had to memorize 14 lines, although 13 lines, because my character is the first one who speaks. And I rehearsed and I rehearsed and I rehearsed. So I got it down pat, and that one line is the only one that I remember, and I still do to this day. All the other lines I forgot. But this one line, I vividly remember. And if you know the musical, you know the Sharks and the Jets were having a rumble and everything, and Schrank and Krupke come in to break it up. And I looked very dapper in my Krupke uniform with the police cap and the uniform and the tie and the nightstick and the handcuffs on the hip and everything else. And I got out on that stage while the Jets and the Sharks were doing their rumble. And I step on stage and I say, all right, that's it, settle down. And then Shrek would say, okay, you can kill each other, but not on my beat. So when this character on Batman Beyond was a guard, a sentry, and he said, halt, where are you going? I realized I could have said that. He said that the same way I said Krupke's lines. All right, that's it, settle down. Same voice, same thing. Halt, who goes there? What is this? Halt, stop. I said, damn, I could have said that. I could have done that. I could have worked on that cartoon. I could have been the voiceover for that. And it was that time that I realized, oh man, did I screw up an opportunity? And who knows where that could have gone? Who knows where they could have led? It could have led me to an announcer's job. They could hire me at a station. Who knows where that could have gone? So that was one of my biggest regrets. And the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is because during my time working on VH1, because at this point I think I'm still 22, going to be 23, but I think I was 22. while I was working on VH1. But I had so many opportunities, and I screwed them up royally. Royally. Here I was, the recording engineer for VH1, the cameras, the tapes. And when MTV or VH1 crew wasn't around, because it could be after they did a show, and the cameras were already white checked or whatever it's called, and everything still turned on, because I think we would have it would be two shows, and then one show, because you had 5 personalities. So you had two, and 1. So the day with 1 is only half a day. I do that, I'll work on that, everybody goes home. Everything's still turned on. Everything's still turned on. And I did not even think that, oh my God, I could do something very, oh my gosh, I really could do something incredible here. I could put a tape in the recorder, hit it, go into the studio, sit down in a chair, hook up the mic to my shirt, close the door, and I could start doing a simulation VH1 segment myself. And so I could say, and I could save the tape and say, this is my souvenir, is a recording of me on the VH1 set, and I'm speaking, and say, you're watching VH1 Video Hits 1, the one in digital Dolby Stereo. I'm your host, Jim Lifton, and this hour we're going to have a lot of great music to play for you. I could have done that. I could have done that if I thought of doing that. It never occurred to me. And my best friend, I think, was on the same day, or another Friday, or another day that everything was all set up. And he came with me to the studio, and I walked with him in the VH1 studio. And he sat down, and he looked around, and he watched the VH1, because he knew that's what I was working on. And he was surprised how small this studio was. It was a closet, but you wouldn't be able to tell from the camera angles, that this is in a closet, And I had an opportunity not only to video record myself in front of the cameras. I could have recorded my best friend as well. I could have put a microphone on him. I would have him sit in the chair with the microphone, and I'd throw a tape in. And the two of us could sit there and say, you're watching VH1 Video Hits 1, the one in digital Dolby Stereo. I'm your host for the next few hours, and I have a special guest. His name, and so forth. Well, how do you feel being on VH1 or whatever? I'd interview him. And so we both could have had a souvenir. Of course, I'd make a copy for him, so he would always have it and say, boy, I was at the VH1 studio. But I didn't think to do that. I had a golden opportunity, and I didn't think of it. I screwed that opportunity up. So anyway, so getting on with it, and there was one more regret, and I will get to that regret at the end of my story about VH1. It isn't the end of the story about Dad and Regent Sound. Just the end of the VH1 story. Okay. So things are going along really nice. And I do what I do. I do what I've been trained to do. It's another day shooting them videos. And oh, one other thing I forgot to mention is that the joke that Don Imus said, that he said, oh, I bet Jimmy Lipton hates me now, is that when he said, and there's Fat Jim in the back, Fat Jim Lipton in the back, right after he said that, Jim's been losing weight. Have you seen that? Yeah, he's down to about 700 pounds now. And then a few people laughed and said, oh, he hates me now, huh? You know, and when he came out, I said, Don, I don't hate you. I don't hate you, Don. I was laughing, Don. I was flattered. I was so flattered that you made me, that the Don Imus made me a little nobody, Jim Lipton, famous. You know, so you said I'm down to 700 pounds. It was funny. Hey, you know, even though I was probably 300 pounds. I think I was. I think it was about 300 pounds I was at the time. You know, and there was, you know, so he joked and he said, oh, he's down to about 700 pounds now. Oh, he probably hates me now. You know, so it's like, Don, I don't hate you. I don't hate you, Don. I love you. You're funny. You tell it like it is. You know, it's like, I love you, Don. I love your frankness. And you just, you know, you don't, you know, screw around. You know, and Don was that way. He's a little bit like Donald Trump, Don Imus. You know, he's not afraid to say it like it is. Say, you know, just say it. And if you have a sense of humor about yourself, hey, you laugh with it. And it's like, Don, you made me famous. I'm a 700-pound man made famous. Hey, I don't mind. Yeah. Don, I'm a household name now, thanks to Don. Hey, I gotta start my own series. You know, it could be a spin-off of VH1, you know. It's like the Jimmy Lipton show, you know. I mean, you know, and Don discovered me. Don Imus discovered me working on VH1, and now I'm famous. You know, I could make that joke up. I could run with that and just have fun doing it. So anyway, so everything was fine. Everything was going great. I was loving what I was doing. Oh, it was so much fun. It was a blast. I just loved it. And then one day, while I was waiting for Scott Shannon to appear, and I turned on the cameras, turned on the equipment, I widened the cameras so it had the right, whatever, put a test pattern in each tape, and had everything ready, put my head, so I got out and went over, waiting for Scott Shannon to arrive. So Scott Shannon arrives, and he says, there's a man, there's Jimmy Lipton. Now I know everything's going to go well. And I was so flattered. I said, I'm only doing my job. I guess I'm doing a good job. I must be doing a good job. You know, because, hey, Scott Shannon of Z100, Z Morning Zoo, he has so much confidence in me. Scott, I will not let you down. Thank you for the compliment. Holly, the producer, had a different reaction. And I just glanced over to her, and she had this look. She had this glaring look that could burn a hole in a person's stomach. And it's like, what did I do? Me? What? I done something wrong. What did I do wrong? and that was my reaction to Holly. And then a series of bizarre situations, occurrences. Then the bizarre started. So, I'm back there. Now, Patty, I think that was her name. She would sit in the back, right, where the monitors were. And you could see, since we were shooting from camera one, see, there was camera one and there was camera two. Camera one looked straight ahead at the desk, and the monitors were in the background. Camera two was focused on monitors, and the talent would sit on a stool or something, or mostly stand, and they would fluctuate, and they would shift. I think there was there a button? Yeah, I think there was a button in the studio. So it had to be. It had to be. I think that's the way they set it up. I think that's the way MTV wanted it. MTV wanted the button in the studio so they could switch from camera to camera. So whenever they want a camera, this angle, it would be camera one. If it was this angle, it was camera two. And so anyway, camera one is, the feed from camera one is going, right? And I got my headphones on, ready to do a show. And I am communicating with Patty, the girl in the back. I would tell her, when she would tell me, okay, roll it. And when I said, okay, speed, and then she'd slate it. And I hear the slate in my ear, because she was talking and her headphones are on. So, no one else. It was no party line, so nobody else could hear the interaction between me and Patty. And there was really a very limited interaction. She would tell me, roll it, burn back meaning, okay, we're going to do that takeover. Then I would hit, I did hit rewind, because every time she'd slate it, I would tap on the memory button. So if we ever had to burn back and redo a take, I would just hit rewind, and the recorder will just go right to that 0 number and stop the tape. And then I'd wait for the slate. And then every time I'd hear the slate, I'd hit record. And then I would say speed. And then Patty would, I don't know, I guess she'd say speed, so at least, and then they would know when to start, the segment. So, like I said, that was really my only interaction with Patty. And so I'm sitting there waiting, and out of the blue, Patty says to me, Jimmy, what are you doing? I said, nothing. I'm just sitting here waiting to start the show. I don't like that, Jimmy. What, you don't like me waiting for the show? Oh, that wasn't nice, Jimmy. What? What did I do? I'm just sitting here. And then Holly says, what's going on? And then Patty turns her head and she says, oh, if you only knew. No, Jimmy, stop that. That wasn't nice, Jimmy. I'm like, what? What the, And so then later on, as I was going home, and Dad was with me, and he said, Jimmy, I heard that there was some inappropriate statements that you made to the MTV crew. said, what? He said, yeah, they complained about you. They said you were being very unprofessional, and that you were really being, it was inappropriate what you were saying. Did they say what I said? I didn't say anything. And my dad says, I didn't think you did. I didn't think you said anything. I said, oh my God, what are they doing? Why are they doing this to me? Dad said, well, whatever it is, we'll just forget about it and we'll continue on. I said, okay, but that still bothers me. I didn't say anything. I said nothing inappropriate. I said nothing to her. I was the same as I always was every day. So I was like, that bothered me. I'm like, oh my God, is this that doctor with the dog in the newspaper? Is this happening again? Where I'm being falsely accused of doing something I didn't do? It's like, great, that's my word against her word. And she's a client. She's a client of Regent Sound. So I'm the one working closely with them, and in essence, I was representing Regent Sound. It was then I understood that I was Regent Sound Studios representative for VH1 and MTV. So my reputation is at stake because that has an impact on Dad and Regent. So now my head is all screwed up because I couldn't understand one thing of it. And I was 22. I was still a kid. 22 years old. I didn't understand dirty politics. Dirty politics was something I did not understand until many years later. But this was like the doctor's dog, and then I tormented the dog and teased the dog while I was delivering a newspaper all over again. But it's something different where I'm being accused of doing something I'm not doing. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics, but the next accusation against me was worse than simple inappropriate. It was inappropriate to the nth degree, and such that it could explode into a full-blown scandal. And that would destroy my dad and Regent Sound Studios' reputation. It would destroy my dad's reputation and Regent Sound's reputation. And they're playing dirty politics. This second one was the bottom of the barrel. It was the worst of all possible smears against me. And I haven't the faintest clue why. The shows come out great. There's no complaints against how well I did the segments, how well I worked the cameras, did the tapes, did the recordings. I did everything the same way as I always did. And now I'm under attack from VH1, and I couldn't understand why. And this was going to be a full-blown scandal against my dad and against Regent. And that day, my dad, we were talking as we were driving home, and he said to me, Jimmy, Butch, I'm going to have to pull you off VH1. I said, okay, what did I do now? What was I supposed to have done? What did I do? And Dad told me what the complaint was. And I'm not going to voice it here. Not going to voice it here. But I can tell you, this was a horrendous lie and a outrageous accusation against me. Thanks. And this was the worst false accusation against me I ever encountered. And I said, oh my God. Oh, do they have it all wrong? That's not the way it happened. That's not the way it happened. Am I sleepwalking? I know I didn't do what they're accusing me of doing and saying. I said, oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh, God. Oh, man. I could never do what I enjoy. I wasn't meant to be happy. I wasn't meant to be successful. I wasn't meant to do a job I loved. I was so devastated. I was so devastated because I loved that job. I had found my niche. And now I'm instructed to train someone to replace me. You know, if I did a bad job, I could understand it. I could understand it if I did a bad job. Tell me what I did wrong, and I'll fix it. I will fix it. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. If I did something wrong, tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it. But what they said I did wrong, it was he said. And like I said, I'm not going to voice it because there's no point to voicing it. I know what happened. I know what really happened and what they're accusing me of, or what they did accuse me of. And I was so devastated. So I trained somebody else to be the video recording engineer. And I would tell her what to do. And I would sit there and watch to make sure she did everything right. And then when she got it, I had to slip back in the dupe room. And every time I left the dupe room to eat lunch, go to Studio B, you know, where Grant Maxwell and Bob Donlan's over there, I would see them going at VH1. I could hear it, you know. I could see the wardrobe in the hall when they changed the wardrobe for another recording. Okay. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart. But of course later on I thought, well,
how you doing?
It's not so bad. I mean,
Hey Siri.
Having somebody replace me, because what if I got sick? What if I got sick and I couldn't come in and they have to do a show? There's nobody who could cover for me in case I got sick. So I thought, okay, there's some logic to training someone to do the job so that I'm not the only one in case I'm not available. But it still broke my heart. Still broke my heart. Because I loved that job. I loved it. And I could not understand why MTV did that to me. I couldn't understand it. What did I do wrong? And to this day, I still don't know what I did wrong. Only that Scott Shannon's praise, Holly took it personally. Like he said, oh, now everything's going to go great because Jimmy Lipton's here. Which made Holly probably think, oh, what am I, chopped liver? What? I won't be able to make sure the whole show is great? And she took it personally. This is what I figured out years later. Because for the first few years, I still couldn't understand what happened. I didn't understand why they ganged up on me. What did I do wrong? And it was later that I realized that I was a victim of dirty politics. Being accused of something I didn't do. Dirty politics. To ruin my reputation, Dad's reputation, and the studio's reputation. That it could have been full-blown into a scandal. And I had no choice but to relieve myself of the job and be demoted back into the dupe room. I was so devastated. And here's where another regret occurred. I slithered back into the dupe room. My pay wasn't changed, though. I mean, at least, hey, that's a good thing. But the one thing at that age, 22 years old, that I could have done, and I didn't, because when you're that age, you are still green. You haven't experienced that much of life yet. And I didn't know that I could take this bad and make something good out of it. I didn't think about that. I didn't think that, okay, I knew I loved doing that. I could work at another studio as a video recording engineer. And on my resume, I could have worked Regent Sound Studios, working VH1 VJ segments, January 85 to whatever it was, July 85. That I was a video recording engineer for the VH1 VJ segments. That would be on my resume. And then if I go to another studio, maybe like Screen Gems EUE on East 44th Street, or CVS over on 57th Street, or Teletape, or any other studio for recording engineer, I could have filled out an application, I could have applied, and damn it, the VH1 would be on my resume from Bob Lifton's Regent Sound Studios. That would have been on my resume. And they probably, maybe not, I don't know. But I never thought to try it. I didn't know that it was a blessing in disguise. Because now I had extensive experience being the video recording engineer for VH1. You know, and be with Bob Lifton, be the son of Bob Lifton. And my dad, he was a known pioneer in the industry. NBC knows it. Jerry Lewis's NBA knows it. Oh, that's another one. That for some years, my dad worked on Jerry Lewis's NBA telethon. And while there was one in New York, there was another one in some other city. And he was a sound consultant on that. And he worked on Broadway. There was one play that he created stereo for a play on Broadway. He was the first to do that. So my dad was a pioneer in so many ways. The whole industry knew him. And if some video house or some studio, maybe it was Search for Tomorrow, Edge of Night, Guiding Light, Search for Tomorrow, any one of those studios, at either Screen Gems, EUE on East 44th, or CBS over on 57th. I could have applied there, although I probably wouldn't get it. But hell, I could try. And who knows what job I could have had. Because I had not only the experience, but a certain very impressed experience with VH1. She's my favorite fan here.
Aww.
Well, I think I'm your fan, right?
I love you.
Thank you.
Hi.
I love you too.
I'll see you, babe.
Okay, thanks, nurse.
What all do you do if you don't mind me asking, sir?
Huh?
Are you used to be like the VH1 production film editor, or?
I was when MTV first launched VH1, and MTV and VH1 did 24 hours of music videos. And MTV was for the kids, teenagers, and VH1 was for older folks. Barry Manilow, Katie Rogers, Bee Gees, things like that. And and my dad, we had 2 closets, and we converted them to a studio and control room. And I was don't do that, you scare me. I was the video recording engineer.
Really?
Yeah. This was probably before your time. This was 85 when VH1 first started. And they called it VH1 because if VH1 was successful, then MTV would launch VH2. Probably geared for something else, I don't know.
So what happened? They teach you out your money or something, or?
It was the producer had a very big ego, I think, and one of the personalities, Scott Shannon, came and he said, "Oh, there's Jimmy Lifton. Now I know everything's going to go well." And the producer took it personally, as if to say, "I'm the one who makes it look good, makes everything go well, but she doesn't." So she took it personally, and she set me up to be thrown off the project. She tried it once, didn't work.
What's her name?
Her name was Holly. I don't remember her last name. This was back in 82.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 85. And hell, I don't know if Holly's still working for MTV. But she threw me off the project because she took a compliment to me personally as if it was against her.
Right.
And this is, excuse me, I'm explaining it to her.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You recording
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't mind. Hell, I get to say it twice, right? So my dad had no choice but to pull me off the project because if I was still working the job, then they would take this and turn it into a full-blown scandal that would hurt my reputation, my dad's reputation, and the studio's reputation. So I had no choice but to replace myself with somebody else.
What's your dad's name?
My dad's name was Bob Lifton.
Really? Was he like a producer?
He worked in sound. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm pretty much at the end of this part. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll continue talking about it with her. So
Robert Lifton is?
Bob Lifton.
Robert Lifton?
I think there's a Robert Lifton in England or something. But there's more than one Bob Lifton, I guess. Okay. But he was well known in the industry. So anyway, we'll stop here for now, and we'll continue with part 4. I think it's a good place to stop anyway. All right, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Okay, take care. Bye.